Good evening then, ladies and gentlemen across the world. Welcome aboard to WOR. This is the Legacy Division, and this is Season 2, Round number 4 here at the Great British Grand Prix. Welcome to Silverstone, and what is going to be an exciting round and an exciting event here as we continue coverage of this Legacy Division. Of course, if you are not familiar with a Silverstone circuit, it's 18 turns and 3.6 miles of track, 5.9 kilometres with the 2 DRS zones. Of course, keep an eye out on the major corners, turn 15, 16 and 17, hot spots for some racing, but of course, don't forget Magnus and Beckett's. It is myself, Jota, alongside Joseph once again for this event. It's going to be a very exciting prospect for what we would expect for the Silverstone Grand Prix and Great Britain. Looking forward to being alongside you for this one, Joseph. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, thank you, Jota. Good evening, everybody. We're home in Silverstone, of course, both of us from Great Britain, the league Great British founded and Great British owned. It is a terrific day to be here. Barely a cloud in the sky. There's a few, but hopefully it keeps on the dry side.
Yeah, hopefully it definitely does indeed. And if you are just wondering, how have you only just got 7 minutes left of Q1? Well, you may have noticed we started a little bit late. More technical issues as to be expected now. This time, though, not related to Codemasters, but now related to Xbox instead. Wonderful, isn't it? Anyway, I've got 12 and now 13 drivers setting lap time. So far, the Talent Factory leading the way, as you may expect. We'll go through the standings in just a few short moments. We'll just go on board with the WOR driver of Dan Spreen, as Rusty for NRX goes fastest of anyone with a 26.8. Dan Spreen just starting his lap. Now, we have had, let's be candid, a particularly tricky set of events that have occurred across the esports world in relation to this game, especially in the last 3 rounds have been plagued with issues, but we hope, fingers crossed anyway, typically we don't see these issues at Silverstone, touch wood anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if I do recall, there was quite a lengthy restart last season, so I hope history doesn't repeat itself. It'll be great if it didn't, but of course, technical issues, they're common. You run into these things when live streaming. Of course, the driver's quite fortunate that they've not missed a lot particularly. We've had a few intermediate laps. We've had drivers pretty much put in their banker. This order that you're seeing at the moment is all subject to change.
Yeah, speaking of order, actually, let's take a very quick look at what we've got as regards to the stand-ins. There they are. Talent Factory extending their lead as one of the Red Bulls just getting out of the way, I think, or just getting through one of the Williams, I believe. You know, Talent Factory leading the way, 97 points. Visceral 65, Outplayed 54. Then the PSR team on 30 with Team Shazoo 25. WOR on 23 with SLT, Summit League team. Summit Racing League will be so happy, actually, with that, getting up to 20 points after a fantastic Belgian Grand Prix for them. Nexus Racing Team on 15, well down the order of what we'd expect from them, with Valor on 8 and Juventus on 5. But, you know, taking a look at those standings and the situation report, Talent Factory once again showing and flexing their muscles.
Absolutely, 3 wins from 3. That doesn't include the sprint race that they won last time out in Belgium as well. So they are flying at the moment. They picked up yet another accolade in winning the Novus Racing Championship on Sunday night. I don't want to go there if we're talking about technical issues, but what they're doing at the moment is terrific. And of course, Legend, another driver looking to move on to PC in the very near future, but his commitment to Talent Factory has been outstanding, and long may it continue.
Absolutely. FRA Arch comes across the line, 27.140, put himself in touching distance. Team Shazoo and Rowan, and then obviously you've got McCabe Sam racing in the Mercedes for the VSR boys. So situation report then, Rusty leading the way with a 26.8, a little bit over, well, a little bit under rather, 1/10 of a second behind Talent Factory's Legend. Ogiano in 4th place, separated by Outplayed Racing's Assicombe at the moment in 3rd place. Assicombe doing wonders at the moment over in the PlayStation sphere, actually showing some real muscle over in that platform, and Outplayed Racing will be absolutely thrilled to bits they've got him at the moment, as it seems at the moment Outplayed Racing putting a real challenge on in this championship.
Yeah, absolutely. Assicombe is a great driver, and I believe he's part of the PSGO F1 roster that was announced, I believe, last night. So, of course, a big deal for all of the PlayStation drivers. They look forward to when they're going to be announced into these leagues. And, of course, being in the top tier is a brilliant honour.
No, it must be absolutely, as we're just going on board with absolutely no one at the moment. It's just everyone just getting themselves ready for the final run in this session here, as we have a very wonderful situation here, as you may have seen at the moment, as the common Codemasters L depicts itself on screen. JH06 has joined the session, despite the fact on my screen the 96 Williams is currently doing the Macarena, just his way, heading around. I think he's heading his way at just a moment through the first couple of corners by the looks of things. Very interesting stuff.
Yeah, I've seen this before. I believe you can take control at the start of the race, but it does mean you'll have to sit in the lobby. He's out of Q1. He can't get back in now. That is his qualifying session run, but we really do need to start preventing restarts here in the Legacy Division. We've had a few nightmarish race days, but hopefully he's able to get back in for the Grand Prix. But it's of course disappointing for the Summit League racing team, who field 2 debutants this evening, coming off of a podium finish from Elite Risks last time out.
Yeah, Elite Risks absolutely flew by in the Belgium Grand Prix, managed to snag himself an unexpected podium, to say the least, for the Summit League team, Summit Racing team, Summit League Racing, however name they wish to go by. It's been going to be a wonderful scenario for them if they can replicate that performance, of course, with their other drivers around at the moment, as we're just following McCabe Sam at the moment. As Legend retires from the session, he's happy with his 26.9, and I would be as well, as I'm just keeping an eye out on the rest of the drivers that really want to give a go here. Of course, bottom 5 will be knocked out. We may be expecting JH06 potentially not being able to set a lap time if his car is currently stuck at the moment. It looks like it may just be stuck in that first sector at the moment, heading through the loop. So if that is the case, that would be obviously disappointing stuff, to say the least, on that one. Aboard then with Simbarox 1. There is the Summit League Racing Team driver, just around heading into the club chicane, and then of course he will be on his way. And of course that would be a great scenario, of course, if they can get one driver through into Q2 at the very least anyway, especially for the 2 debutants on that one. Early indications though suggesting NRX Rusty, once again the man at the moment in form, leading the way from the Talent Factory driver.
Absolutely. He finished P3 here last season. He was overtaken by Skither on the final lap of what was quite a thrilling race, actually. So he's going well, continuing his very good form to start the season. Simbarox 1 making his way to the end of the first sector, as you mentioned. They've undergone a little bit of a rebrand. They've also stripped the age limit from their team. I believe it was previously 16 plus, so they're more open to the younger generation of drivers now and helping them to develop. And being in a tournament like World, there's a great pathway to be up here and fighting with the best.
Yeah, just on board with Shazoo Rowan at the moment. He's 1,000th of a second slower from Bradders at the moment in the Haas, and looking quite strong at the moment is Shazoo in this championship as well, obviously trying to climb up the rankings as well. With the old guard at the moment this season especially seem to be sort of relatively struggling. We had a really good sort of fight between the likes of PSR and VSR, but they're not showing the muscle that we may be expecting them, and this is an opportunity for Shazoo to really find their sort of vengeance, if you will, versus the two, but they're not particularly in form either. So if they can find the form, those 3 teams could really put a challenge on at the moment. But Outplayed Racing and Talent Factory certainly are the team to sort of be messing with at the moment. Rowan then throws his car through the club corner and then down the newly named Hamilton Straight as it comes across the line. Rowan to go P4 and goes into the 26s, exactly what he's looking for.
Yeah, absolutely. His teammate Air is then going through Cop's corner. He's up on his time as well. He's right on the cusp now in 15th place as Josh Gilly crosses the line and goes P14. Next up will be one of the Hasses, one of the Juventus cars of Bradders. He makes his way now into Stowe, 5th gear, short shifting into 6th, flat out down the hill, and now into Vale and Club to follow, braking a little bit on the curb, but he gets it slowed down excellently into the final couple of corners. Now very smooth on the throttle once more, and Bradders crosses the line. It's a sensational lap, just a 10th off the pace, and it's a 26.9, but we do watch for Aries, who's next across the line. Only 14th, still on the cusp.
Yeah, at risk though is Ayres at the moment with that 15th place, but managing to get 2 drivers so far through for Juventus, which is exactly what they need. The only crucial thing here is we've got 2 WOR drivers yet to set a lap at the moment. So Schumacher and Dan Spreen are on their final laps, and this is going to be a crucial lap for them, of course. Now Schumacher, ever the controversial driver, is now heading around that final corner, gets a little bit of a tank slapper, but comes across the line right now and is out of qualifying immediately out of the blocks. So Dan Spreen is going to want to try and get himself, if he could possibly possibly help it through, but he looks like he's not particularly comfortable either as he comes across the line now, and both WOR drivers are out of qualifying on this occasion. Schumacher missing out by just a little bit under 300ths of a second. Shazoo have managed to sneak one driver through. SLR are looking to one improve, but he's going to be coming into the pit lane, and that is it. So Ayres does manage to get through by the skin of his teeth, but both WOR drivers are out.
Yeah, very disappointing for the team currently 6th place in the championship. 2 cars out of qualifying. SLRT not having too much luck, obviously, with the JH situation. We hope he can recover in time for the race. But, yeah, surprising indeed. But it's so close between Schumacher, who was the first driver to get knocked out, up into P12. McCabe Sam, that's what, about 600ths of a second? It cut off at the last second there. But throughout the entire grid, a close and encouraging Q1.
Yes, a really impeccable qualifying one, actually, but unfortunately not so impeccable for the SLR team, as well as, of course, WOR, both out of qualifying. We'll take a very quick look before we go to the break. Rusty, then, is the driver at the front, leading the way with a 26.8 from Legend, who is less than a tenth behind, as is Asicombe, as is Rowan as well, and only 0.103 seconds separating P5 from P1 at the moment. Really good stuff at the moment between them, with Sav, the fastest of the PSR drivers, in 6th, and towards the back, of course, there are your drivers knocked out of Q1. Schumacher, Josh Gilly, Simbarox, JH06, and Dan Spreen all out of this Q1 session. So we head through with 15 drivers separated by less than 0.3 of a second. Then we bet through to Q2. We're back very shortly for that continued coverage. Continue coverage of this qualifying session at the British Grand Prix now continues, and we have immediately out the blocks Mercedes with McCabe Sam and VSR leaving the blocks. Alpha Tauri also sending their driver with Outplayed Racing out as well as early as possible can, as well as Juventus are sending their car out early as well. So wanted to set the early precedent between these drivers immediately out the blocks with 15 minutes on the clock.
Yeah, some of these drivers as well only getting through with one set of soft tyres, so they want to be straight out there onto a new set, if possible, to try and get a banker in and save some for the all-important Q3. Of course, you've got the soft, the balance, and the hard allocation of tyres when you load in. Of course, it will highly depend on what they've chosen. So strategy is about to be determined here in Q2.
Absolutely, as we just keep an eye out then on those that are going to be setting out. The first one of the drivers that are going to be setting out will actually be the Outplayed Racing driver of Asicombe, and of course forever a driver who's been really showing his consistency basically throughout this entire sort of tournament, and pretty much in the full esports world, to be fair, really flying out there. But he is going to be the first person to set the initial lap time. He did get into the 26s on this occasion, needs to replicate that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, every thousandth of a second is going to count here based on what we saw in Q1, with the 0.3 covering the top 15, 3.5 covering the top 17. So Asicombe will want to lay down a marker for the rest of the drivers, of course. When they see that purple lap time flash up, they think, okay, that's competitive. He wants to get into their heads a little bit, maybe.
Yeah, potentially. I mean, whoa, there's my microphone going a bit funky. There we go. Fingers crossed that should all now be resolved. We keep an eye out then on the rest of that performance then coming in from the likes of Asicombe, who's now going to come across into the Vale chicane and down the Hamilton straight. And he will now run riot as he tries his hardest to get towards the front if he can help it. Of course, the Outplayed Racing team currently in the standings towards the front. He will want to keep on with the performance of Outplayed Racing. I think, you know, aside from the sort of the performances from Talent Factory, which have been, you know, beyond anything that we can really comprehend at the moment. I mean, 3 wins from 3. They've been absolutely flying. You know, we have to look outside of Talent Factory. You know, I'd put my money on sort of Outplayed Racing as being the team that's sort of in the distance, just holding their own and just really performing well. And if they keep on with the, you know, continued performances that maybe we would expect, you know, they may just maybe a team that could be sort of putting Talent Factory under pressure if they then end up slipping up.
Again, I'll reel in NRC from Sunday night, which I covered, and Asikun was so close to bringing home their first win. It was just a few tenths in it at the end, so they are determined to get the wins in these cross-play tournaments, and maybe tonight is the night. We'll have to wait and see as he flies down the hanger straight now. You're full throttle for about 70% of the lap. It's a track that even if you do have a minor slip up in qualifying, you can get past on the DRS straights and you can throw it down the inside at corners like this at the chicane at Vale, where you might not otherwise think about it, the narrower tracks we've had to start the season, but Asikun crosses the line then. It's a 27.3 at this moment in time. You don't quite know if it's a scrub set or fresh set, but based on these lap times, you'd be leaning towards more scrub.
Yeah, I mean, it is a few tenths down, to be fair, so he needs to find a little bit more in the time if he wants to try and get himself in touching distance of those in front. McCabe Sam with a 27.3. M. Racer coming across the line, his teammate, 27.4. So both of the VSR boys going second and third with a 3 and a 4, respectively. But still no 26s immediately coming out the blocks. FRA Arch won't set a lap on this occasion as it was invalid, as will Rowan. We are just on board with Outplayed Racing's Robbie at the moment, as well as he's just heading through Magnussen Beckett's. Important lap here coming in because, of course, he'll want to try and compete with his teammates if he can. Try and get within the 27.3s if it is a scrub set. If it's not, then he wants to try and get into the 26.9s if he can possibly help it. He was actually a few tenths down on his teammate on the last occasion. We'll see how he does then as he heads now into Club and then into Vale. And he'll want to keep it nice and tidy if he can possibly help it. As he comes across the line now with the Outplayed Racing driver, and he ends up putting himself fastest of anyone with a 26.8. I have a sneaky suspicion that was a new set.
Yep, as do I. Rowan at the moment also on a flying lap has invalidated Arch, blasting down now in towards Cop's Corner using a little bit of grass on entry. It'll be intriguing to see what sort of lines the drivers take, particularly as we get towards the final runs in Q3, because, well, it's Silverstone. There are a wide variety of lines you can take at certain corners, late apexes, prioritising exits rather than entries and so on. A little bit of traffic up ahead for Arch, but I do believe he switched his battery off because he's not deploying anything down the hanger straight, so it looks like we'll just have the 7 drivers kick-starting this Q2 session.
Absolutely then. So here the situation report at the moment as we're just keeping an eye out on Scyther as he's now heading down towards Luffield. So situation report between all of the drivers at the moment anyway is that we do have one driver at least setting into the 26.8s and trying to match that of the Q1 lap times. We think scrub sets may be on at the moment for those behind P1 at the moment, so we are keeping an eye out to see if we do see any further improvements as we go on board with the American of Scyther. Of course, one of the drivers that was keeping it nice and tidy and getting in competition with the likes of FRA Elite last season. He'll be wanted to try and show his form here because I think PSR being so out of form at the moment, this is a real opportunity for certain drivers to shine. And obviously not saying that is going to be the target of some other teams, but you may end up seeing those drivers that fall out of sync with the team as regards to their form may end up being poached.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, PSR are running an unchanged lineup compared to what they ran at Silverstone last season. Of course, a lot of these teams on the grid have undergone a lot of changes. Some didn't even exist, and obviously some we hadn't even heard of because of the divide between Xbox and PlayStation. But as we say, that Skither up into P1. Of course, they qualified 2nd and 3rd here last season. PSR, they'll be looking to repeat that or maybe even go one better this time around in Season 2.
On board then with Rusty as he's heading through Maggots and Beckett's, and he'll head now down the hanger straight, wanting to try and keep as close as he can to the top here as we've got both of the Talent Factory drivers now in 3rd and 4th respectively. The other McLaren of Sav will come across the line and he'll go 5th fastest of anyone so far in the 27.1, so perhaps a scrub set there as well. But so far of the 3 that we suspect that have got new sets of soft tyres on, all 3 of them, are in the 26.8s at the moment. We'll see how Rusty comes then as he comes across the line himself, and he's also in the 26.8s as well. So mighty close stuff by the drivers that we suspect are on new sets of soft tyres.
Yeah, 4 different teams up there as well, and still plenty more to run on a fresh set. Levi to cross the line, about 7 tenths off the pace. So again, you'd have to point the finger that is perhaps a scrub set because, we're miles off the level of competition we saw in Q1, So again, we'll just be waiting patiently because this is all about to get very close indeed at the end of this session.
7 minutes to go then left in this Q2 session. Of course, we'll have a 12-minute Q3 session following on from this one here, as Bradders is just heading his way through into Club and Vale at the moment as the Juventus racing driver is about to start his lap here. Important this for Juventus as well, because of course they're bottom of the standings at the moment in 10th place, and both through now to Q2. If you can get one through to Q3, that would give them a really good opportunity to get some more points on the board, try and get closer to the top if they can help it. But they've definitely got two drivers sort of close to each other. I think one driver not setting a lap time consistent of what you maybe expect with that 28.5, but a 27.7 puts him in touching distance of Shizou and very much touching distance of one of the NRX drivers of Levi.
Yeah, and of course Juventus will look at their points tally and go, well, we're bottom, we're on 5, but they'll look at the achievement of Summit League Racing Team, who went into last week's Grand Prix on 1 point and come out of it with 20. There is still a lot of movement that can be done early doors here in the season. So again, like you mentioned, if they get into Q3, they'll have a really good chance of points because, well, it's often a DRS train around here. You can get away with just relaxing a little bit. Not relaxing, that's perhaps too vague of a term, but sticking with that pack and hopefully securing yourself some good points.
Yeah, as he's now heading down the Kemmel Straight as Asicombe goes even faster with a 26.7. What a lap time coming in then from the outplayed racing driver as we now start to breach the 27.8. And Asicombe on now what is clearly a fresh set of soft tyres coming in with a lap time that is comparable to what maybe we would have expected in Q1, as now here comes Bradders as he comes across the line, and the Juventus racing driver has gone even faster than Asicombe. He goes to the 26.7 as McCabe Sam for VSR comes across the line with a 26.6. So we're now starting to see these lap times tumble. I don't know if there's a level of evolution that's come in that's so aggressive at the moment, but Juventus have got one driver on the front and certainly through to Q3 as it stands.
Yeah, I had my eyes on one or two Discord chats that I won't disclose at this moment in time, saying there is a little bit of a lack of grip in Q1, so maybe it has evolved a little bit into Q2 as the rubber gets laid down by these Pirelli soft tyres, and we're into the 26.6s. Just how far can we go into the 26s? Of course, there's no slipstream, so it's perhaps not wise to compare it to maybe other recent tournaments and leagues that you might have seen, but indeed, it is getting really, really tight once again.
M Racer's still not finding the grip out there at the moment, though. He's gone to 11th fastest and with a 27.189, actually knocked out of Q3 by 0.005 of a second as it stands, but he's unvalidated his next attempt here. Has us Rowan as well, and Rowan hasn't even set a lap time as it stands. So, crucially, some of the faster teams at the moment are struggling with some of their drivers that you maybe expect towards the front. Sav as well, struggling out there with a 27.183, and then Legend still with only that 27.163 at the moment. So crucial stuff between those in 9th and 10th at the moment. They're the front runners that you'd expect to be towards the front or towards the mid and potentially at risk of being knocked out as it stands. Both of the outplayed racing drivers are going to be so happy with their performance. They're probably through no problem at all, despite the fact that you've got one driver down in P5. You'd think they'd be looking over their shoulders. But at the moment, you'd have to say that Robbie certainly feels a bit more comfortable. Asicombe certainly as well. But Bradders, great shout from Juventus to get Bradders out there at the moment. 2nd place.
Yeah, indeed. And, well, I really can't pinpoint who will get eliminated in this session. At the moment, usually we see in Q1, you can afford to do one run and just retire. Nobody will be retiring at this point. They'll all want to be out there preparing themselves for Q3. Should they get there, it's going to be a fierce battle. Track position is going to be vital. PSR Sav is the first one out there, but you may benefit from being the last based on this improvement in lap time.
Yeah, potentially, but then if the curve, the exponential curve of evolution is large at the moment and quite steep, you may expect some people want to leave last minute. I think the reason why Sav has decided to go out early is because he knows he's at risk. He's only 0.005 away from being knocked out of qualifying by the VSR driver of M Racing. We know PSR and VSR have got constant sort of bouncing off each other when it comes to the sort of competition they have between the two teams. So it's going to be crucial that Sav gets out there and gets as many attempts as he possibly can help, to be perfectly candid, as some of the drivers are all electing as well to have maybe a couple of runs at this one here. I think Legend is also out there as well as as to be expected, but then we've got 4th through 8th, through 7th, sorry, all out as well, and that's no surprise on that one because they're all in the 26-8s, and they know people are going to start improving at a rate of knots here, potential likes of Legend and Sav improving. You're going to be seeing people be knocked out by hundredths of a second here, and never mind tenths.
Yep, absolutely, and it all starts now with PSR Sav making his way into Stowe. He should be fairly free of traffic. I believe there's one more car still to exit the pit lane, and it's M-Racer exiting the pit lane, so he'll have to work his way past him. Of course, you mentioned the bouncing off each other between the two teams, PSR and VSR. We've seen a few blocking instances involving PSR very recently as well, none of which they can be particularly at fault at. But PSR Sav has got acres of space now to try and make this lap work. Bit of a slide coming out of the loop and onto Aintree to go and onto the Wellington Straight. His first sector split will be crucial.
Yeah, it's going to be crucial as he comes across the line now, and he does go a tenth and just a little bit under a tenth and a half faster as he gets through Aintree, then down the Wellington Straight into Brooklands, then Luffield as he now comes out of Woodcote. He'll head down towards Cops, and this is going to be a make or breaker for some. Some people tend to be a little bit more conservative here, and to be fair to Sav, he's got the opportunity to be a little bit more conservative if he wants, because he has got the opportunity to have another go at this one here as he goes across there, and it looks like very little conservative nature in this lap then as he heads through Maggotts and Beckett's, and he'll hopefully not get in the way of that particular Mercedes. I think it might be M-Racer on an out lap at the moment as he then heads through down the Hanger Straight. Then it's going to be a crucial opportunity for PSR here. They want to get both drivers through and not be in a bit of a sticky situation, especially with their current placement in the standings at the moment. Heading through Stowe, then into Vale, and then of course the club corner as the Mercedes does get out of the way, no problem at all. Then heading of course down into the Hamilton Straight. It's going to be important. Sav here gets a good lap in, tries and gets himself towards the front. Now try to take the second place in the front row with a 26.718, not faster than McCabe Sam, but going to be safely through, you'd have to suspect, with that particular lap. But of course you've got a bunch of drivers all with only within a tenth of each other, down at a risky situation here with Rusty going faster with a 26.4 of all laps. What a lap time indeed from the NRX driver as we keep an eye out on Arch. He's now heading through the corners towards Maggotts and Beckett's as Legend goes second fastest of anyone so far, as McCabe Sam relegated to third and Bradders relegated to fifth. His teammate Backy's come across the line for 7th place as Scyther is going to want to try and improve as well. He's in the 26.8s and definitely now at risk, and certainly even more at risk here as Rowan has gone 7th fastest with a 26.7 of his own. Here comes Scyther as he comes across the line. 26.6 puts himself 3rd fastest of anyone so far, and then Rowan relegated to 9th as Aguiano has just come across the line for 5th as Assicombe has gone 3rd fastest and now puts Backy at potential risk of being knocked out here with FRA Arch coming across the line. He won't improve on this occasion. Ayers was looking to improve, but he's a 10th and nearly 2 tenths down and invalidated his lap. The risk situation now is all about VSR and M-Racer because he's struggling out there at the moment. He has been pretty much throughout this entire qualifying session. Has he managed to find any grip, I wonder, as he heads then into the club corner, and then he'll come down the Hamilton Straight, and with that green helmet in the silver arrow, he'll come across the line and will only go 11th fastest as he matches back his qualifying lap time. I said it could be hundredths. It's not even thousandths. He's out.
I'll repeat it again. Every single thousandth will count, and it has. It's been proven, literally missing out by, what, a 4th decimal place there. Unbelievable to see M-Racer so close. It would be so frustrating to experience that. But Rusty, the dominant force in the second part of qualifying, an exceptional lap to do a 26.412. We said the times would keep tumbling. Many drivers using pressure to their advantage, getting the adrenaline pumping and pumping in a rapid lap time.
So in the end, the grid once again separated within around about 3 tenths. Just a little bit under 4 tenths on this occasion anyway, but M-Racer of course knocked out after setting exactly the same qualifying lap time as Backy for Juventus Racing, though of course M-Racer set it second. He has been struggling with grip out there, and known to get knocked out by exactly the same qualifying lap time as the driver that knocked you out is obviously extremely disappointing to say the least. But what is a loss for VSR is a gain for Juventus Racing. Are we on par here for potential Juventus to make some big inroads and get above that 10th place that they're currently at the moment in the standings with both of their drivers through to Q3? This is really good stuff, of course, for that PlayStation team. Let's take a quick look then at those results and that table at the end of Q2 before we go to the break. And there it is, NRX Rusty once again topping the standings with that cracking lap, 26.4, separating him from Legend once again, and then Asicone once again. But Scyther managing to get in there for PSR, fourth fastest with VSR's McCabe Sam in fifth, Ogiano for Talent Factory in sixth, with Sav in seventh, Bradders in eighth, Rowan in ninth, and Baki in 10th. Both of the Hassers and Juventus Racing will be incredibly happy with that performance, and Shizu getting one driver through. Ars, though, not able to do so. He's out in 15th with Arch in 14th. Robbie's in 13th. Levi is in 12th, and M Racer knocked out by exactly the same gap. Really disappointing stuff for the VSR driver. Bitterly disappointing stuff, and as I said, what is a game for Juventus? Are we on front of the back marker showdown towards the front? We'll see. Back in a sec. Continued coverage then of this British Grand Prix. We're through to Q3 then, as all the drivers are getting themselves ready and raring to go. Leave us a quick thought in the chat. Who you think your favourite is for polls? I throw that one over to Joseph. Immediate anticipation and immediate thoughts coming into the equation here suggests that we're in for one hell of a ride with who could be on towards pole. Rusty showing the initial pace, but it's mighty close.
It is, and I would have to give the boring answer and favour Rusty here, but there will be a little bit of a disadvantage to him in the race. He's the sole NRX car into Q3, and he won't have the support that the likes of PSR may have if they qualify towards the front, and maybe even Juventus Racing as well might be able to spring a surprise towards the front. It could be very, very exciting. Two Talent Factory drivers in as well, I must mention. So NRX Rusty might face a bit more pressure now that the stakes are high.
Absolutely. We've got Sav just leaving on track at the moment to get going here, as the overcast conditions are starting to set in around Britain at the moment. As we take a look once again at the standings, and they got Talent Factory leading the way with those three back-to-back wins, if you will, with Visceral in second and Outplayed in third, and Paradox in fourth, Shizu fifth, WOR in sixth, and they are in trouble as well with them both knocked out in Q1 here. They've got the opportunity for Nexus, possibly even Valor and Juventus Racing especially, to make some inroads here on WOR, currently on 23 points, and if they end up doing, any of those backmarker teams end up doing what Summit Racing team did in Belgium last week, WOR could sink down the standings here with that performance in qualifying, because Britain, although it's not a track not known for not being able to overtake at, when you've got a driver that's potentially of high attrition, it's risky.
Yeah, indeed, and well, Silverstone, fortunately, they'll be able to say, okay, there's a little bit more room for error this weekend. Just go out there and score as many points as you can, because we're approaching crunch time in the season. There'll be transfer windows to come, and nobody wants to lose their spot in the roster. So, yeah, there's plenty to prove, obviously, up and down the order, but quite simply, just try your best.
Try your best. Have fun. That's what it's all about.
Yeah.
It's just a game, bro. And we'll keep an eye out then on Sav as he comes across the line down the Hamilton Straight, and he's going to have a go on this lap, actually. Love Silverstone. I think we all do, don't we? It's just such a free-flowing circuit as he heads through then into the next selections of corners. Of course, it's going to be nice and compact. Try and keep it close as he possibly can through Village, into the loop, through Aintree. There's only one apex he can really hit round here, and to be fair to Sav, it looks like he's managed to hit all of them relatively smoothly as he heads down the Wellington Straight. Very briefly, of course, talking of like the performance of certain drivers and certain teams, I think the biggest shock out of them all really has been about the champions, if you will, of last season. Of course, they didn't win the championship in WRLD last season. PSR have really not been on it so far this season. And of course, we are only on the fourth round, but with such a shortened calendar in comparison to what maybe could be considered a full calendar, every race is going to count for them now.
Indeed, and we could talk all day about track differences between the two platforms and who's going to have the advantage here and there. No, they've just got to go out and hit every apex and just perform to the best of their ability, because if they miss out, they miss out. I know their manager, Wexro, is very keen on the drivers performing in tournaments with prize pool available, tournaments that reach big audiences, because ultimately that is what will help them make the next step into being potentially F1 esports drivers going forward. Will Sav be one of those as he comes across the line to do a 27.2? Again, perhaps a scrub set to kickstart Q3, reserving one for the race perhaps.
Yeah, just keep an eye out then on NRX Rusty as he's now heading into the Vale chicane, and it's going to be fairly important here that NRX initially set the ground running, even if these are a scrub set of tyres, because with 3/10 gain between Q1 and Q2, misses his apex through the final corner, but still sets a 27.0, but he's 6/10 slower than his last lap, so potentially, and again, a scrub set of soft tyres on that particular occasion, but we'll keep an eye out and see what his lap time comes in, because we've continued improvement. Legend with a 26.4, I bet your bottom dollar that we're going to potentially have Rusty on a fresh set of soft tyres, potentially breaching to the 26.1s, maybe even the zeros, and God forbid the 25.9s if that ends up happening, because we're talking esports level of pace coming potentially from Rusty. If he is on a fresh set of soft tyres, he's flying out there if that's a scrub set of softs.
McCabe Sam also, who went really well in Q2, is out there for his first Q3 run, and I'm sure his lap time will determine whether he's on a scrub or fresh set of tyres. Is rounded the final couple of corners as the lap times keep tumbling in. McCabe Sam crossing the line, and yeah, great lap. 6/100ths of a second off of Legend. Asikum next across the line. He goes fastest at 26.332. That is the benchmark halfway through Q3.
Oh, God forbid if that's a scrub set of soft tyres, because I can't imagine it will be, but crikey, we've got some really, really quick lap times coming in here, as we've actually got Niels in the chat. Would you believe, listen to this one, Joseph, right? 26.193. How specific is that? That's what he thinks the pole position lap time is going to be. Niels, what do you think that one's going to be, actually? He thinks that will be done by Brad. He thinks Bradders is going to come across for Juventus and get pole position. At the moment, it's a 30.5, so he is massively off the pace, but I'm wondering if that's just maybe he's having a couple of outlaps on that occasion. We'll have to see anyway as he goes through Maggots and Beckett's, who's the Juventus driver. Looking quite quick at the moment is Bradders, but the question is, can he get anywhere near the likes of Asicombe and Legends lap time at the moment? McCabe Sam as well, not discrediting the VSR drivers. He then heads through into Stowe. He'll chuck the car into that right-hander, but that understeer doesn't look particularly promising at the moment in that Haas, as he then heads into the club chicane, and he'll want to keep it nice and compact as the Haas will avoid that sausage curb on the outside line. Come across the line now, 26.837, puts himself fourth fastest, but of course they would be potentially a scrub set of softs on that occasion.
Yeah, good effort from Bradders at this moment in time, and I'll tell you what, if that prediction is correct, I will sort you out a gift on behalf of the league, because that is a bold prediction for Bradders, but he's doing well out there. It's a good middle sector time, all things considered. Claimed purple momentarily, but he is there or thereabouts in there where it does matter in terms of high-speed performance, so we could see him make moves, if possible, if his car looks encouraging in the high speed.
Outplayed Racing, though, leading the way and outplaying all of the other teams, with Asicombe at the moment leading the way with that 26.332. We've got a little bit of time before all the drivers are going to have another go at that one, so it's going to be all about the performance now of the drivers on this second run here. Now, of course, it'll be another fresh set of soft tyres. They get a third set of soft tyres, of course, or a fourth set, depending on what you pick as your tyre allocation in Q3. So this will be the extra set of softs that the drivers will now be putting on. But so far, as it stands, it's all alive and kicking for Asicombe, with Legend and then McCabe Sam. Bradders, of course, in fourth at the moment, just trying to get back to the grid as soon as he possibly can, or get back into the pits as soon as he possibly can. But so far, not looking so good for Rusty with that 27.0, albeit potentially on a scrub set of softs. But we've got to look at Scyther again and Sav. I mean, 26.9 is not out of the realms of possibility of being on a set of scrub tyres, but if they were newer tyres that were going on, the PSR boys here, they're in trouble.
Yeah, absolutely. We can't tell for sure unless we have some insider knowledge from the engineers in the live chat, but perhaps that's a bit too optimistic. But there is a downside of sticking on the scrub tyres, and that is that you are technically on the back foot. You've got a bit more mental strain going into your second lap, knowing, okay, this is exactly what I need around the lap, and you could get a bit too tied into all of that and start missing apex, scrubbing speed here and there, and that does not constitute the perfect lap. So we'll see. Rusty straight out of the garage here. First one out there. I'll have plenty of space on the racetrack. He is one of those drivers.
Ever the keen driver is really Rusty, isn't he? As he's on his outlap at the moment, we'll see how he performs on a fresh set of soft tyres. As we're seeing a bucket load of people in the chat at the moment now throwing their lap times in. Some being very specific, some not so much. Kai Pearson in the chat saying Sav is on his way to a 26-1 on that particular lap. He thinks the 26-1 pole position for the PSR driver. Cypher 26-102 specifically, says Lewis in the chat, as well as Francesco saying 26-222. Bradders H44 pole position, he believes, on that one as well. So a bucket load of lap times coming in, some people being specific and some people not so much. You've got Evan also saying 26-252 by Legend, who is the Talent Factory driver currently in P2 at the moment. So open the doors up here, you know. What's your thoughts, Joseph?
Yeah, I mean, it's so tough to call at the moment. I don't think I'll attempt to give a specific lap time. But,
go on.
Well, I said I'd fancy Rusty. I'll stick with Rusty just for the sake of it, and I'll go at 26.294.
294. All right, there we are. We'll
I'll write that down.
Write that down and gift yourself a present, as you would do for any other person that gets the pole position absolutely bang on to the thousandths of a second, and the driver, because if you do, you might want to get the lottery numbers off them as well. NRX Rusty then comes across the start finishing line, and he is going to be the first person to set one of his potentially, I think it will be his final run here. So he's gone out quite early compared to the others out there, but the sun is now starting to break through the overcast clouds that were starting to bubble over ever so slightly at the beginning of Q3, but now seem to have dissipated somewhat as he heads through into the Wellington Straight with the DRS open. The Aston Martin will fly down the straight now, and he's actually found a 10th and a half already in the first sector. Clearly a testament to the ability of himself, as well as the brand new soft Pirelli P0s that are currently at his boots at the moment, as he now heads down towards the next couple of corners. Of course, it's going to be pretty critical round here. He doesn't want to end up making a mistake through here as he chucks it into 7th gear, and a little bit of understeer, I'd have to say, actually, as he heads through Cops, though. Through Maggots and Beckett's then does the Aston Martin, and actually looking fairly clean as he brakes so late, actually, into Beckett. So much grip on that front end as he then, of course, goes onto the grass ever so slightly, and then 5/10 up. So he's breaching now into the 26.3s at the moment. So he's breaching into Assicombe territory. The question is what time is he going to find then through Stowe, and then into the final couple of corners through the Vale chicane into the club corner as he'll head down towards the Hamilton Straight. It's going to be a critical set of lap times here now coming in from Rusty as he comes across the line now. 26.412. Qualifying is over. He hasn't got pole on this occasion here, so Assicombe has managed to breach him on that particular lap here. He's now heading through here to see if he does improve, and he is actually up 7 thousandths of a second in that second sector, so it is looking fairly sharp for the Alpha Tower as he comes across the line to improve to a 26.309. Legend is up in the second sector, but not by much, 41 thousandths of a second, as Sav goes second fastest with a 26.383. Scyther 26.467, beaten by Legend to fourth fastest with a 26.434 of his own here. Bradders is looking to try and improve, and he is nearly 3/10 up in the second sector. Last lap time was a 26.837. His teammate's gone faster with a 26.7, as we've got an improvement there from, I believe it was Aguiano, who comes across the line with a 26.371, and then it manages to match the 10th, as Bradders only goes 8th fastest, but with a 26.485, a testament to how close everything is at the moment. It's so close out there, with McCabe Sab setting the final lap time out there. Where is he going to put the car for VSR as he comes across the line, goes 4th fastest of anyone with that lap time. He will be happy, but monumentally close between the top 9.
Oh, that's incredible. And my prediction was wrong. I was only 15 thousandths of a second off it being correct, but 4 drivers within a tenth. Rusty just outside by 3 1,000ths of a second. Overall, Backy there, a huge outlier, being 4 tenths off, but still a really valiant effort to get 2 Juventus cars in there. Sadly, starting 9th and 10th, but honestly, on another day, it could have been anyone's.
Alpha Tauri, what an effort indeed with the 26.302 and the top 4 separated by a tenth of a second. Really, really good stuff. We're back for this continued coverage of what is going to be a fantastic British Grand Prix. Good evening then, ladies and gentlemen across the world. Welcome back to WOR. This is the Legacy Division. It's Season 2. It's round number 4 here at the Great British Grand Prix. Welcome to Silverstone in what is one of the most historical tracks in the calendar. Silverstone begs to be what is going to be a very good race indeed if qualifying's got anything to go by. With these 18 turns, it's 3.6 miles of circuit, 5.9 kilometers and 2 DRS zones. And of course, keep an eye out on the hotspots for racing tonight. We're thinking turns 15 through 18 may be hot, but of course never forget Maggots and Beckett's. That will be the lead up down the Hanger Straight. And then we'll have a very quick look at what we've got coming up as regards to the standings. It is indeed a monumentally close achievement between the drivers out there at the moment, with Outplayed Racing absolutely flying high with Asicone, third place in the standings on 54, though Talent Factory leading the way. Can they get their 4th win of the season on 97? Visceral in second on 65, and of course never discredit PSR. If their form returns, they are going to be unstoppable. From myself, Jota, I hand myself over to, of course, my co-commentator for tonight, Joseph. It is going to be a fantastic event if qualifying's got anything to go by. What a set of qualifying events we had.
Yeah, absolutely. Welcome back, everybody. And wow, just 2 tenths separating the top 9 drivers. We saw an elimination from Q2 by nothing, 0.000 of a second, causing an elimination from qualifying. And yeah, it's a little bit more overcast in more traditional British fashion. We've got an Italian front row lockout with Outplayed Racing and Talent Factory. Will they be able to repeat the same feat that they did at Wembley Stadium back in 2021 and topple the patriotic Englishman?
Yeah, M. Racer was, I think, the driver you were looking for, who got knocked out of Q2, obviously by exactly the same lap time. Just a testament to how things were so close, you know, in that qualifying session. And of course, the top 5 were separated by under a tenth in Q3 as well. So the drivers are going to be very keen to get going here with that timer ticking down. It is going to be an interesting British Grand Prix, as it always is in Silverstone. The drivers are lined up on the grid. And with those drivers lined up, we are going to be counting down the lights. It's 1, it's 2, it's 3, it's 4, and it's 5 lights. It's 5 lights, and they are a go the drivers. Here they are, and down that inside line then will be that Ferrari, of course, who's going to be wanting to try and put a challenge on, but immediately getting challenged by that McLaren, and then immediately Sav wanted to put some pressure on with Rusty also getting into the mix as well. We've already got one person retiring from the session, and one of the WOR drivers is out of the running in Dan Spreen. Sector 1 yellow flags waved, and it is a really, really big accident towards the rear by the looks of things. Look at that, Sav getting involved in there with ours as well, and it looks like a VSC has been launched as a result of that one. Dan Spreen immediately out there in the start, as Asicombe does lead from the front though.
Yeah, that was a really chaotic start there. Just tried to catch it back on the replay. I'm not quite sure who it was, but an Alpine went flying down the inside at Village. I believe it was Shizou Rowan, and he took out a PSR driver. It was PSR Sav, so that could be a very, very big penalty coming the way of whoever caused that. I mean, it's not easy to tell for sure, but 2 virtual safety car drive-through penalties already off of this restart. Neutralised briefly Aries, and Baki 2 for Juventus Racing. Disappointing start for him, though his teammate Bradders is already up to 7th.
Yeah, really difficult stuff for Shizou, and PSR last thing they needed as well. Now, I'm not sure if they've got any floor damage. They've got no front wing damage to my knowledge, but situation report for Sav is that he needs to get past, he's got past rowing actually quite quickly, because he's got major structural front wing damage, has the Shizou drivers, both of their drivers down 17th and 19th respectively. In that midfield, of course, you've got the likes of Robbie up 3 positions alongside the likes of M-Racer, Levi as well, Arch Gilly, and Simba Rocks 1 as well. Of course, the SLR team are going to be happy if they keep up with that one. Asicombe naturally getting the fastest lap of this race, of course, after the first lap. But situation report at the moment is the top 4, all different teams still.
Yeah, absolutely. Competition still high at the moment. And Rusty, who was wide at turn 2, I believe he was on the left of 2 more cars. So he tried to go 3 wide into the first corner at Abbey. Rusty doing well to go onto the grass and, of course, prevent a collision on his part, though it all kicked off around him. 1 second though, almost. Asicombe breaking DRS nice and early here, and Oggiano is going to have to get onto the battery and try and stick with him, though it looks like Asicombe has the same idea and is trying to pull away rapidly.
Hard tyres then coming off of Rowan and Schumacher's car. They're now onto a set of medium tyres, as doesn't look like Schumacher can get out of an accident at the moment, can he? Bless him. He's in a bit of a sticky spot at the moment. I'm not sure what exactly happened towards the beginning. I'm sure that the stewards will review it, of course, but he is now with a new front wing and a fresh set of medium tyres, and he hopes the safety car will come to the equation to get him back in the race alongside Rowan, of course. 5 seconds back, of course, he will be from Rowan at the moment. So we're on board with Cypher. The hard tyre runner is trying his hardest to get as close as he possibly can to, of course, his co-compatriot at Talent Factory. He will be hoping that with the other hard tyre on as well, everyone's going to be matching, so this is all going to be about that sort of pace and the setups. As Sav is already making some inroads and trying to make inroads on the SLR driver of JH06, and the move actually done heading through, as we rightfully predicted, the hot spot in between 15 and 18 at turn 16, just going out of stow.
Yeah, Sav, it looks like he's gotten away without any damage, so is able to continue on the very inflexible strategy of hard to medium. So it's a good job he's able to get going again. Yeah, whatever happened to him, I'm sure time will tell when the stewards' inquiries come in, but it looks like Asicombe has got away. 1.1 seconds now is the gap, and ERS looking very scarce for Oggiano. Asicombe still holding up nicely as he continues to try and pull away, and there's a gap forming as well between Oggiano and McCabe Sam. So indeed, racing is not looking too likely out in front.
Now, of course, no DRS is going to be available at the moment for anyone outside of the 1 second barrier. McCabe Sam has just managed to get back in the DRS territory of Aghiano at the moment, and that's allowing him to put on a bit of a defence versus Rusty, who's a little bit closer to McCabe Sam than McCabe Sam is to Oggiano. But crucially, that lack of ERS now available for Oggiano is going to see him hemorrhage time all the way down the straight, and with no DRS, and the red light's already blinking at the back. How much ERS has he got left? He's got nothing left already after 3 laps around a circuit like this. At the moment, Oggiano is going to really struggle to try and get that time and get that energy back without hemorrhaging time by lifting and coasting at a track like this one. That is the last thing that you need for your long-term prospects here. 1.4 seconds, Asicombe Oggiano, 7/10 and 3/4 of a second for McCabe Sam to Oggiano here. Talent Factory are going to struggle with him out there at the moment.
Absolutely, and it's not a reference that Oggiano will understand, but indeed, you said the line, I've got nothing left, and Well, it'll take some miracle to start recovering it from there. I mean, you're, like I said earlier, full throttle for about 70% of the lap, and that's 70% of the time where you're using some form of ERS. You can't put it down into none like you used to be able to. So just like that, within the space of 4 laps, he's gone from trying to stick with his Italian compatriot to fending off an Englishman in McCabe Sam.
Yeah, Asicome is now going to have the ability to pull away here, and as Cow in the chat is saying here, Asicome, let's go, break that DRS. He absolutely has broken it. Schumacher sets the fastest lap of the race down in 18th place as Shizu Rowan has come in for a fresh set now of hard tyres. He's, I think, trying to go to the end of this race if he can help it. We'll see what happens then with McCabe Sam as he now goes down the hanger straight. He's getting closer and closer, not using his ERS though, as it looks like a little bit of a lag spike. Then I was hoping that Moggiano looked like he potentially brake checked in there, but he didn't. It was just a lag spike, but there you go. He's getting closer and closer. Sav already making inroads once again, now up to 14th place and trying to rescue his race, and he's still got plenty of ERS at his disposal, so he is pushing through the pack, but he isn't pushing himself too hard.
Yeah, absolutely. No need to at this early stage. Track still a little bit unpredictable, along with the tyre situation. It takes a few laps just to build momentum with the hard tyres, so there's really no need to at this stage. However, we did see last season it get a bit desperate on lap 9, a collision at Cops between Leopard and Skidder, for example, that can, well, quickly turn your race on its head.
Got the Talent Factory's Liam Craig in the chat saying mad pace from Outplayed Racing at the moment. It is. It's absolutely insane out there at the moment, as it looks like Outplayed Racing's Robbie's decided to... he's had enough of being on the back end of Levi and has made an overtake as he tries to get within the DRS and stay within the DRS of the VSR's M Racer up in 8th place at the moment, and that is exactly what is going to happen. Scyther getting closer and closer to Legend at the moment. Now Legend has got plenty of ERS at his disposal, so he's able to manage his race effectively, and despite Oggiano using up all of his ERS at the moment, McCabe Sam is not making as much inroad as Rusty is on Oggiano at the moment, because he's getting really close here. And he's not really been pushing either. With all of that ERS available, there's potentially going to be an overtake on the cards, potentially for Rusty, before McCabe Sam can make an overtake on Oggiano here. And he does get in that rear view mirror of McCabe Sam, but elects not to go for the dive on this occasion. But we've seen overtakes happen at turn 16. Is he going to get into the wing mirror again? He does, but again, he's not looking for the overtake.
No, he isn't, but he is looking racy, is NRX Rusty. I'm just seeing in the live chat from TF Mees that Oggiano's having a couple of screen freezes, which, yeah, I've seen evidence of that on Twitter, so that would be not surprising to hear that that is the case, and that is why he has dropped so far behind Asicum at this early stage. I mean, it is just a lottery. Whoever the crossplay gods feel like interfering with today, but he's doing a good job so far to keep going.
And that's the unfortunate issue of hardware incapability. I believe the PlayStation 4 is probably the weakest of the hardware availability for crossplay. I think the PS4 has widely been renowned for being really difficult for crossplay. For the Xbox One, Xbox Series and PS5 getting away with it. So it's going to be critical for anyone on PlayStation to try and upgrade their hardware as much as they can. Of course, by the next game cycle, this is assuming, of course, that the next game even allows for the previous generation of consoles, and of course that one will be, I'm sure, announced in later time when we can finally bin off this game and move forward to F1 23. In the meantime, though, we do have 20 laps of racing at least left to go in this cross-play event. More loaded for the WOR Legacy Division, British Grand Prix, 6 of 23, and Sav is making further inroads. He's now up to 13th place, but crucially, first opportunity now, he's going to start making some inroads and fast, because he's out of DRS territory on the next driver in front of him, Josh Gillian, 12th.
Yeah, absolutely. He'll need to keep it penalty-free, because said Josh Gilly does have a penalty to his name quite early on here, so that won't be ideal if a safety car was to appear later in the race. But Sav, you have to say, it'd be a great comeback if he can get back up into his starting position, or maybe even a little bit more. Might try and go long to protect his teammate Skidder and give him a helping hand in trying to get past Legend and Rusty. It is just one big train at the end of the day, from second until about, well, I was going to say 16th, but that has quickly gone as JH sadly spins at the corner that he was stuck at in qualifying.
Oh, and so has McCabe San. He's gone for a spin, going through Luffield, and the Mercedes VSR driver was looking so sharp out there, and suddenly everything has fallen on its backside, unfortunately, as Sav is now going to be able to make some inroads already, now up to 12th place. He didn't think he'd be in this position as a switchback from McCabe Sam going through into that corner. That big right-hander is such a rare oversight to make an overtake there. Sav, I think, caught out napping a little bit because you don't expect to make any overtakes going through cops, but on that occasion makes the under and over work an absolute treat. But Sav is going to say, I want that position back, thank you very much. He's now back up to 12.
He is, and it's a great battle between two drivers now through, it seems, very little fault of their own, because I wonder if Rusty had anything to do with that, because he was very close to the back of McCabe Sam when we last tuned into him. They're now trying to come through the order together, and that could make for a fascinating race, both quite heavy now on their battery usage to try and just go hard, really, or go home, because there's a lot to gain now from this point.
Legend would be wise to try and get within the DRS territory of Rusty and stay within, and then start using his overtake as much as he can to get as close as he possibly can to Rusty, because Rusty's just about to get into the territory of Argiano, who has of course got every 10 seconds getting a screen freeze apparently with PS4 issues, and on top of that he's also struggling for ERS management, so it'd be wise for Legend to get as close as he possibly can to NRX Rusty and possibly put him under some pressure so they can get at least a couple of Talent Factory cushions in there on the podium. Scyther, though, looking very racy out there, is the PSR driver. Forever a very, very informed runner. I don't very rarely see him make any mistakes, and this is an opportunity for him to shine amongst the out-of-form team at the moment for the McLaren as he now heads through that right-hander, through Beckett's, and then down the hanger straight.
Absolutely, and a shout out to the driver behind him, Bradders, H44, who is up 3 positions at the start of this Grand Prix. I mean, a lot of drivers in that top 10 have benefited from other collisions at this stage, but like I mentioned earlier, they'll be using the achievements of SLRT and those that started the day rock bottom to hopefully elevate themselves up the championship, because as it stands, Team Valor only scoring 1 point, but Bradders bringing home 8 is what could gain them a position in the championship.
Yeah, massive, massive points for Juventus, that one. And I did say every point will count, especially towards that rear. And at the moment, Bradders on for some big points tonight if he can stay within the DRS territory. He's been showing some pace throughout qualifying, in fairness to him, so it's not like he's there by mistake. The guy has got some serious talent for Juventus at the moment, and I think Juventus, a bit like the situation with Elite Risks at SLR, potentially would be wise to keep him within the team, to say the least. Rusty just going through Luffield then as he gets closer and closer to Argiano. Now again, Argiano, to be fair to him, despite the lack of ERS, has actually been able to harvest a little bit of energy. He's lost a lot of time to Assicombe at the moment, now up to 2 seconds between him and his fellow Italian man. But the situation reports is that Rusty is gaining ground, but he's used up a lot of that ERS to get within touching distance of Argiano, whilst Argiano actually has been able to recover quite a bit of that energy and stay within quite a big distance of Rusty.
Yeah, he's done well, especially if he's still dealing with those screen freezes, and I believe we did have confirmation in the live chat that it is mainly a PS4 thing, so it's a huge obstacle. You go into it pretty much every single crossplay race knowing, well, I'm in for a pretty rough ride here, but he's powering on through it, which is great to see, as is PSR Sav, who's continuing his comeback. He's now up into P11 and on the verge of the points.
I think Josh Gilly may have also been caught a bit napping there, because he's got a 3-second time penalty, and he's also been overtaken by McCabe Sam and very briefly was ghosted, so I'm wondering if he's made a mistake somewhere and got a penalty for it. If you are just tuning in, welcome to the PSR Sav show. He's flying out there at the moment, despite the spin out earlier on. He's making overtakes like that they are running out of fashion. He's flying in 11th at the moment and trying to gain some ground as he gets closer and closer to Arch, and still enough ERS to feel comfortable, to say the least, with his general running. He just can't use overtake that much now on that ground here, and he's got a bunch of drivers all within DRS as well as he rejoins the DRS train down in 11th place. That's the situation report towards the back, towards the front again. Rusty once again getting in touching distance of Argiano, but now beginning his process of trying to recover electrical energy, now back up into the 40s for the Aston Martin NRX driver as he then heads through Maggots and Beckett. Argiano very, very hesitant going through Maggots and Beckett's, actually. So he's approaching this a bit differently to the Aston Martin, and he would be wise to bear that one in mind as he gets later on into the race, because, of course, if he gets too close, he may end up spinning him out. Here he comes then as he goes then closer and closer into Stowe, but once again, not close enough.
Yeah, absolutely. And Oggiano's got no real reason to push 100%, you'd say, because it's a huge uphill battle trying to get back into the DRS of Asicum. So why not just sit back, try and let the drivers behind do a little bit of fighting while simultaneously charging your own battery? Because, like I say, huge task to get back into the DRS, and yeah, he's still on for a podium either way.
I think the PSR social media team would be wise to post something about Sav at the moment and say that this is very much the PSR Sav show, because he's the one that's just ignoring the rules of the DRS train and making overtakes when he wants. He's flying, as I said, in 11th at the moment, and now within the DRS territory of Arch, he's going to get closer and closer, and actually beginning his sort of method of trying to recover some energy to begin his next push. And you can see now back up into the 50s. So again, we're starting to see the drivers now begin their sort of return, try and get some energy back into the battery, and obviously in doing so is allowing themselves to recover some fuel as well. If they've gone for the sort of smaller fuel load on the beginning of this race, it gives them the opportunity to recover some of the fuel that maybe under-fueling is their strategy. Bradders at the moment, though, is the person who's really just minding his own business. He's got plenty of ERS at his disposal. He's definitely within the green on fuel. So what is Bradders to do, I wonder? Is he just going to keep with the status quo, or is he going to begin a push?
I mean, why not? He might trigger the undercut. He might go long and trigger the overcut. There are a couple of different options as we get ever closer to the pit window. I'd assume at earliest it'll be about a 50-50 split on lap 13 of this race, where we start to see the pit stops come into play. But they've got to make a decision over at Juventus Racing. Not really a position they've been in the Legacy division so far, so they've got to time it right.
Yeah, and I think this is the opportunity for them now to start asking the question of Bradders, can you go a little bit faster here? Because if everyone else is following the status quo of just harvesting energy and just recovering here, whilst he doesn't need to, could he begin a push and start really catching people napping here and potentially get into the top 5? That would be the question that should be on Juventus' lips here, because Bradders is racing a really good mindset of a race here, and as is Scyther as well. He's got nearly 100% battery out there, so he is able to go whenever he wants to, whilst he's got Legend in front as well. Also, he's on 50% energy, as is Rusty. Oggiano is still struggling with the electrical edge. He's been able to recover a bit of energy, but he's not been able to continue that coverage because, of course, he's got a driver in front. That's 2.5 seconds in front. So he's got no ability to be able to defend from anyone here. So he's been able to really defend quite well here. But I think the inevitable is going to be, is this going to be this lap, I wonder, though? Because NRX Rusty is getting closer, but once again, he's not using overtake. But he is able to get closer and closer with DRS. Is he going to be able to go to the side? No. Closes his DRS early. He's just playing the mind games with the Talent Factory driver.
Absolutely, and I think going back to Bradders and perhaps pushing on to try and make an overtake, I think everybody around him has got the ability to recognise when he's pushing and indeed press some of that battery. So it might well be a domino effect. One driver does something and the rest follow, and well, one driver that has gone a bit out of the ordinary is FRA Arch, pitting on the end of lap 12 to try and trigger an undercut onto the medium tyres.
So the TV8 Team Valor driver coming in then to get off onto the medium tyre for what will be a 50-50 pit stop, which is quite, shall we say, challenging at a circuit like this one. It's one of the highest egg circuits on the calendar, as NRX Rusty, I believe, has now begun his challenge here. Now he's obviously spotted potentially people making their pit stops, so he knows that the pit stops are now inevitable here, and there is the overtake button, so full confirmation. Rusty's beginning the push here. Oggiano probably going to be overtaken then into the down the hanger straight, then going into Stowe. We'll see as they go through Cops, then into Maggots and Beckett's. The Aston Martin getting closer and closer. It'd be wise to bear in mind that Oggiano is a little bit hesitant going through Maggots and Beckett's, and that is he's then done so. He's matched the pace of the driver in front. DRS now enabled, though. Is he going to go for the overtake with the overtake button not in use? He's getting closer and closer, but once again, he's electing not to make the overtake. So I thought he was on a bit of a push, but perhaps he's now just continuing to put the pressure on Oggiano. Is he coming in? He is coming in. He's not going to yield to that pressure, and he decides it's time for that pit stop. He's going for the undercut.
Yeah, he is, and well, his ERS is quite scarce, so he's not going to be able to deploy all of his battery like Rusty is doing now to try and make that overcut work, going the extra lap into the pits. We've got Ogiano, Bradders, Roby, Levi as well, who's had a pretty quiet race. We've not said too much of him. Josh Gilly as well with 6 seconds worth of time penalties. Had 3, picked up the further 3 seconds. I believe he had a half spin at Club Corner, so his race is looking very lost at this point. There's not too much he can do about those 6 seconds, but however, we continue to watch the progress of Rusty, his ERS usage as well, as he tries to make the jump in the pit phases.
You know what the key thing is here as well, Joes, if you think about the actual pit strategy, of course, it's the longest pit stop in the Grand Prix season, is the British Grand Prix, 37 miles an hour, and it's such a long pit stop as well as a result. But Rusty's in the Aston Martin, which means he's later down the pit lane. If something were to go wrong, let's say he misses his timing with the clutch, he's going to end up being stuck behind potentially a Ferrari, a McLaren, and a Mercedes behind him, who are all in very close proximity. So if he makes just one mistake going into the pit lane here, Rusty could be in serious trouble and lose potentially up to 3 positions as he does come in. Asicome has also come in as well, so no further obligations here, as Scyther, though, has elected to stay out for PSR. He wants to make these hard tyres work even faster, as the sun is starting to blare down on the circuit as well, which is only opportunity knocks for those who are picking a softer compound of tyre here, and that is those on the mediums, so the undercut may not be as powerful as a result here, as we do see NRX Rusty coming down the pit lane, and he has been overtaken as to be expected by Asicome. Legend just going across and then does not get the jump on him, so of course Asicome will still lead from the front, but Rusty is able to hold on to P2, but McCabe Sam crucially staying out as well for VSR.
Yeah, and it's all eyes on Ogiano now as he blasts down the Sir Lewis Hamilton straight. Fastest lap for FRA Arch. Remember, he hit 1 lap earlier than the man we're watching, Ogiano. And it's a fantastic overcut by Rusty! Oh, Ogiano, way too deep into Village. He goes down the inside anyway at the loop, and Rusty is going to be fuming with that. He was on cold tyres. There was absolutely nothing he could do about that one. Will Rusty try and fight back into Brooklands? He's going to have to send it, surely, and try and get one over on the Italian. He has a think about it, but his tyre's still not up to temperature. And Brazzers for Juventus Racing down the inside at Luffield. And Rusty, who initially had the overcut done, is now behind 2 cars.
Yeah, and that's the testament to the colder tyre, and you can see he's weaving on the circuit, trying to get the temperature back into the tyres, and to be fair, he was pushing really hard, but the undercut has not worked at all. The overcut, rather, has not worked at all for Rusty, so it is all about what Bradders can do, and he needs to stay within touching distance of Argiano, but he's got so limited ERS at the moment, so he's got the ability to use the DRS, but he's got no ERS available at his disposal, whereas Rusty is using what's left of him. Both of the red lights are blinking, and he's going to be sandwiched, is Rusty, and as a result of that one, he can't make any inroads. He's going to get a little bit of traction on the rear, though, so he's going to have to go around the outside of Club, and that is so late on the brakes from NRX Rusty, and that is going to cause him so many more problems than I think he realizes, because he's going to hemorrhage all of that speed down the straight and potentially put him under pressure from Legend of all people. And guess what? Talent Factory, who of course leading the way at the moment, and NRX are desperate for points here. Rusty would be wise to think about the team here and not put them under any much pressure.
Oh no, my goodness, Skither has emerged into this race. He was as low as 5th. He's now up into a net 2nd. But Ogiano's going to have the DRS here, and again on the warm tyres compared to the Americans, cold mediums. He goes down the inside at Brooklands, and another move to be made here. Skither yields very quickly. He knows he doesn't quite have the grip to fight that one, but he performs a successful overcut with everybody battling throughout that pit exit phase. Skither is up into a podium position on the road.
Genius. Absolutely genius. And whether that was a call from the race engineer at PSR or a call by Scyther himself, it was a great performance there to try and make the overcut work, because he knew that everyone else would be battling with each other, and of course those who of course will be pitted 1 lap early will be battling as well. He knew that would happen, and he's now up to 5th as a result. Really good work indeed from Bradders, as there of course he's got NRX Rusty trying to battle with Bradders and spins Rusty Rusty in a collision going through Stowe, and Rusty tried to make the switch back from the outside to the inside and may have caught Bradders napping, and that's the last thing Juventus needed if a penalty is applied on that one. Rusty was looking so well, but he needed the points for NRX. That's the priority, not the podium, and he's down to 13th.
It's the question of, was he far enough alongside to be entitled the car's width of racing room? It will be yet another incident the stewards will have to look at in this race, and unfortunately, it was inevitable that it was going to boil over at one point. Oggiano has an obstacle. It's JH of Summit League Racing Team, who's been through all sorts of issues in this race, from a couple of disconnects, a qualifying, one elimination through no fault of his own, and Skither here is going to come around the outside of JH, but he's still there. On the inside is the Williams, the team based in Grove versus the team based in Woking. Wheel to wheel, a little tap between the two tyres, and Skither might try go around the outside of Cops. It might be the move of the season if he can get it done, but he can't. But the DRS straight awaits.
I'm not being funny, but Oggiano absolutely helped Scyther out there by just blocking JH's performance. He's so quick on that straight, has allowed JH to potentially put some pressure going through into Cops, but unfortunately for him, he is not able to make any inroads as Bradders looking to try and shake off what happened with him and Rusty earlier on. He elects not to go for any overtake as JH is elected, I think, just to give that position up here, unless he's made a mistake, I wonder. He is using overtakes, so I think he's trying to rectify the mistake, but he hasn't got the traction as Legend's going to go around the outside and completely caught JH napping in that one. So the SLR driver in the end elects not to battle too hard as McCabe Sam finally comes in for his pit stop. Asicoma is able to get the overcut, no problem at all. Scyther as well, undercut, no working, no problem at all. As it looks like actually McCabe Sam has lost out big time as Roby's going to go around the outside here for Outplayed Racing as they need to get some more points on the board to potentially challenge P2 in the standings in VSR, and he gets himself up to P6. VSR are having an absolute stinker. NRX needed the big points, they could have been in there, and now Rusty down to 13th. That's a stinker, and you've also got potentially PSR having a stinker. It is all about whether Scyther can continue on with this solo performance. He's been absolutely fantastic to watch.
Yeah, he's looking to replicate his P2 in the Season 1 rendition of the Great British Grand Prix in the Legacy Division. We've got another spin for Schumacher. I think that's 2 on this lap. He's punctured. He's done 15 laps on the medium tyres and has lost his front right tyre. Levi has got the move done on JH at Cops Corner. This is going to go right down to the wire for the podium positions, the points-paying positions, the whole lot.
I'm wondering here if JH is trying his hardest to hold on here for the hope that a safety car is coming in. To be fair, it's absolutely possible with the aggression of the people out on the circuit at the moment. Zem Racer makes his inroads on JH, who tries to make it a bit of a valiant defence, but it's a half-hearted one in the end as he now comes into the pit lane and calls quits on this one as Rusty is trying to make inroads on McCabe Sam. Of course, is now on a fresh tyre himself here, and what could have been is the question for Rusty. He was on his way to a potential podium. Now that podium has potentially opened up to guess who? Juventus Racing, but trying to replicate what SLR did and getting their 3rd place at Belgium. And Juventus could be on for some big points tonight. They're definitely on for they could be on for big points. They're definitely on for big points. The question is whether they're on for a podium or not.
Yeah, it would be some visionary opinion from me saying that they might well replicate what SLRT did from the bottom of the standings, and he's just half a second off that at the moment. Should Skither and Oggiano go into a little bit of a battle, it is entirely possible that he can go and pick up the podium, but being involved with that collision with Rusty, if he didn't leave ample racing room, he could be on for at least a 5-second time penalty, I'd have to assume. So still not innocent at this point and not certain to be up there and fighting.
Yeah, at a risk of sounding opinionated here, you've got to remember racing is, being on the track and being in the car is 50% of the skill. The other bit of the skill, of course, is having the mindset, and if your mindset is constantly pushing to be the highest position you can be when your team, let's be honest, is not towards the front, you've got to think about the team and their prospects, and they really, really needed that 4th or 5th place that maybe he could have fought for. Instead, he's now down in 12th, and his teammate is at risk of outracing him as a result of that one. That is going to be probably a lesson learned for Rusty as he, of course, develops as a driver. He's got the form, he's got the pace. He just doesn't have that mindset at the moment. It's all lessons that will be learnt. In the end, though, not a bad situation for the likes of, oh my goodness me, Scyther. Now 5-second penalty for speeding in the pit lane as he comes off a set of soft tyres he's just put on. I'm wondering if that might be WOR's race over and done with, that's for certain, to say the least, as Scyther getting closer and closer to Ogiano. I must admit, Ogiano, I have absolutely zilch idea how he's got himself into this position to be able to defend so well, because he's not had the electrical energy in his way. He's had 10 seconds, every 10 seconds he'll have a bit of a screen freeze, which will cost him time as well, yet he's still in second place.
Yeah, it reminds me a little bit of when Charles Leclerc in 2021, he was leading the way, obviously, following the Hamilton-Verstappen collision, and his engine was cutting out. It reminds me of that sort of performance, and a bit of a Lando Norris drive from Skither, going late into the race and trying to make it happen late on. There are so many comparisons you can make with the real world, and isn't that just the beauty of Formula One and the beauty of Silverstone, that we can have this unpredictable battle ahead of us?
Yeah, and here comes Scyther then as he wants to make the inroads to try and get second place off of Ogiano hands, but Ogiano, textbook defending, immediately covering the inside and not losing that much time in the process. But the Vale chicane is an opportunity to make an overtake. Scyther again electing not to go for the move. Ogiano just using their textbook for racing and making the defence very well known. He wants to hold on to P2 and he's doing so quite well.
Yeah, he is, and it looks like any moment now Skither will trigger and commit to making this move, because he knows that Ogiano might be a little bit vulnerable with said screen freezes and said low electrical energy. Will it be now as they round the loop and onto Aintree, past the absolutely packed grandstand here at Silverstone, the capacity increasing every single year? No oil protesters this time around though, and Skither not making an overtake either.
No protest from me about the racing as well. It's been absolutely fantastic to watch, to say the least, between these drivers, as the British Grand Prix always brings something very special indeed. Bradders, though, has managed to do, guess what, save a bucket load of ERS and is now matching with the likes of Ogiano, so he can keep himself within touching distance of the two in front of him, as Ogiano makes a little mistake actually. For the first time that we're starting to see him feel a bit of pressure. He knows that there's a 5-lap stint now to the end of this race here, and I think you've got to think, one thing you've got to remember as well, actually, come to think of it, you know, every lap counts when you're at a circuit with the highest degradation of tire, with your tire, you know, by a long mile here. So this is going to be all about that extra 2 laps that Scyther has got. But once again, he's putting all that pressure on Ogiano, but he's able to defend so well, is that Talent Factory driver. And there's absolutely no space, so he's losing time and he's burning through tyres. And granted, they're 2 laps older, but the more he puts the pressure on, the more they're just going to basically be in equilibrium. And Bradders is starting to smell the potential podium here.
Yeah, and obviously I hope it doesn't come crashing down with the still prospect of a penalty looming large. But Skither, I don't think he's in much of a rush here. He performed a move on Rusty on the very final lap of last season's race to finish P2, and that was on the run towards Stowe, I believe. So, as I say, no rush whatsoever. It's still a long train behind him, and one wrong move could see him tumble right out of the points. It's Rusty, ironically, who's at the rear of this train, down in 12th.
Yeah, and the train is now starting to fall away from VSR McCabe Sam at the moment, because he is now starting to breach out of the 1 second territory. He's just got back into it on that occasion, but he's going to be at risk as we keep an eye out on Sav, of course, who wants to make some inroads as Schumacher goes fastest of anyone, down in 19th place, but 1 minute and 2 seconds behind 18th place. Never mind the lead of this race, as he is now going around the Magnussen Beckett's complexes, Sav, and he's going to want to get closer and closer, and potentially opportunity is knocking there for an overtake. But looking at Scyther, he's electing not to make any immediate inroads. He knows it's not the wisest thing to do, but it may be a wise thing to do for his teammate Sav, who gets closer to M-Racer. But again, no overtake on that particular occasion. Is he going to look for it potentially going into the Vale chicane? He's getting in his wing mirrors, but again, no immediate overtake, as it looks like Schumacher has gone for a spin, just going out of, at least to be Aintree.
Yeah, and again, Schumacher really struggling out there. His race never really got going. I believe he was involved with some sort of lap 1 collision, and WOR, it's just been a complete write-off for them, and with the likes of Juventus Racing performing, and of course SLRT, they've got elite risks available in their roster as well to make things happen. They're not looking in a very good position for the remainder of this season, and TVA are constantly improving as well. Arch sitting fairly pretty, I have to say, in the top 10. Josh Gilly, 6 seconds worth of penalties. It's the battle down below that I'm always intrigued in looking at. Who is the team that are just going to make the step up when it counts the most? And at the moment, WOR are really failing to do that.
Yeah, WOR failing to do that one. An opportunity for some to really gain some time. And one of those drivers, I keep saying it, NRX would have been in a real good position here after this race. But unfortunately, perhaps that mindset not quite there for the very young team, of course, who have got some lessons to learn at the end of this Grand Prix. Scyther getting closer, overtake available, and he's using it. He's going to go around the outside, switches to the inside, sold the dummy, gets into a little collision with Oggiano though, as he makes a very late call to defend the inside line, but still only able just to hold on to P3. That was mighty close.
I mean, that was a collision I'd have expected.
Oh, goodness me, Scyther getting into there as well. Is he going to go down the outside line then potentially? Is he going to get caught up? Bradders is on the inside line going into turn 1 as he's going to get close. He elects not to go for the move though on that occasion. Bradders saw it, but he thinks of the team. He knows 4th is absolutely beautiful for Juventus as he's made a mistake, and Legend's going to make the move around the outside going into 5, but on that occasion he's going to get caught up. The last couple of laps are going to be crucial here. Legend is pushing him around the circuit, but DRS is available to be able to defend towards there. Scyther is going to get cut up. He makes the move, and he gets the move done and moves to Talent Factory's Oggiano to 3rd, with Bradders just able to hold on, and he's going to get closer as again the rear end not looking stable for either of the drivers in front of him.
A couple of late moves there from Oggiano before it all kicked off again. I was going to say that's something straight out of Sky Sports' latest advertising campaign for the upcoming season. Pure drama here at Silverstone, pure theatre as we approach the final 2 laps here when we cross the line. Is Skither going to be able to hold on? Is Legend going to be able to make a move and try and extend Talent Factory's championship lead even more? Bradders is flashing away here. He's used all of the energy that he saved up, so Legend's going to pull to the inside. He's going to try and make the move at Stowe. Down the inside he goes. He tries to follow his teammates line through, forces Bradders off the track, so they're still wheel to wheel into the Vale chicane. Legend on the outside, which turns into the inside, and it's a job well done.
Yeah, fair play. Legend's got all of that ERS at his disposal. Bradders hasn't, and that's maybe what you'd expect from a team of the midfield. Obviously, they feel the pressure, and they've used up too much of the ERS now, and now he's going to be at risk of falling down the standings. That's the last thing Juventus need. 5th place is still a great position for the team, and that's exactly what he wants to try and hold on to if he can help it. Oggiano would be wise to let his teammate through here to potentially put a risk on Scyther, but is the Oggiano going to allow that, considering he's basically been in 2nd place throughout this entire race? Here he comes then, and no, it doesn't look like he's going to make the move that easy into that corner. We'll see on the next one as Schumacher gets another set of 3-second time penalties, which now I think rises his standings potentially into the double figures. Our Legends, though, at the moment, it's going to be that question. Is Legend going to be allowed through? Is Talent Factory going to do the wise thing here and potentially allow Legend to put pressure on Scyther? And if he can't, maybe let Oggiano back through.
Yeah, whatever happens in the final 1.5 laps, though, folks, it looks like Talent Factory are finally going to be beaten for the first time in 4 races this season. And Oggiano now 6/10 behind Skither, who looked like he timed his move perfectly. He tried to get it done the first time, and almost the second time having a repeat of the first time. Yeah, it doesn't really add up, really, but, well, he's done a good job to get through. Anyway, one final lap then. M-Racer has got ahead of Levi, which is a crucial move for VSR after McCabe Sam's earlier spin. It looks like he's about to get a point because FRA Arch has picked up a penalty as well. Disastrous penalty situation for Team Valor.
Yeah, it's important here, and that final point could go either to VSR or NRX with Rusty as well, of course, who is now within touching distance, as well as Sav is wanted to make some inroads potentially on Levi. Elects not to go for the move, and that is such a late breaker from McCabe Sam, and that has caused massive damage on the left-hand side. Surely someone has got damage. I did see a bit of carbon fibre flying out there, and McCabe Sam will now try and hold on as much as he can for that final point towards the front. We have this battle happening between Ogiano and Legend. Now, it looks like to me Talent Factory are saying it's between the pair of you here, or potentially causing problems, as now Schumacher's got a 10-second penalty for corner cutting. Looks like he's just cutting corners willy-nilly at the moment, as unfortunately we may expect from the driver of high controversy, as there comes Legend getting closer and closer to Ogiano, who's clearly struggling with his electrical energy input here. In fact, actually not using that much by the looks of things, so it's all going to be about who is going to be the faster of the Talent Factory drivers. There's a mistake going through Magnus and Beckett. That would have been awful if the two drivers were collected as a result, but in the end it's looking more and more likely here that he might just be able to hold on, Will Ogiano, despite the lack of the ERS, but it is all going to be about towards the front. Asicombe has barely got any coverage here, and Outplayed Racing will be happy to hear that one, because he's absolutely flown high to take victory here in the British Grand Prix from Scyther, who will finish in second place, in PSR desperately needing that podium and points, with Ogiano finishing in third and Legend finishing in fourth. Bradders taking a solid fifth place for Juventus, the points they desperately need, and Robbie rounding out the OP sandwich in the top six, with M Racer in seventh. Sav recovering to a very respectable eighth place, and after the penalties are applied, NRX will only finish in 9th and 10th, which is such a disappointing prospect in the end for what was a fantastic performance from Rusty to finish behind his teammate in the final points position. McCabe Sam in 11th with FRA Arch in the end finishing in 12th. Baki for Juventus in 13th. And then the first of the SLRs in 14th. Valor finishing in 15th with Gilly. And then the final SLR driver of JH in 16th. And the two Shizou drivers, where have they been today? Shizou flying massively off of the radar with WOR 17th and 18th. Schumacher finishes in 19th with about 20 million seconds worth of penalties. And Dansbreen finishing, of course, with a DNF, the only DNF of this race. Disappointing stuff from the back final two teams, though, Joseph.
Yeah, absolutely. I do just want to mention McCabe Sam, high drama off camera on the final lap as he tried to go around the outside of Levi at turn 16, turning into the inside for turn 17. He got pinched on the apex, very, very desperate to get down the inside there. And he had a half spin, and what was looking like a 2-point finish turns into a no-point finish. It was a good comeback. All things considered, though. McCabe Sam, an early spinner. PSR Sav as well had an early spin, and he was also making moves on the final couple of laps as well, so his performance should not go unnoticed. Back-to-back P2s as well for Skither, but ultimately a fantastic dominant display from this man entering the podium now. OP Asicum.
Yeah, I mean, Outplayed Racing, Asicombe absolutely flew high throughout that entire race. It's been absolutely wonderful to watch, as the Outplayed Racing driver, and the Italian will be so happy with his continued performances over on the PlayStation platform. Carried over into crossplay, takes the top step of the podium, alongside Scyther, and some well-needed points for PSR as well. Falling out of sync with the current form of the team, Scyther may be at risk of being poached. You never know. We'll have to see what happens in the esports community for that one. And of course, Talent Factory not beaten once but twice, as the only one driver getting third place in Ogiano on that one. We'll take a look at the, I think what is going to be, as you might agree with me, Joseph, very, very provisional results of this race. Asicombe is at the top step of the podium with Scyther and Ogiano, as we said. And then Legend rounding out the Talent Factory's performance with a third and fourth place, and probably the team of the race. Bradders in fifth place in some very, very juicy points for Juventus. I'll be so happy with that one, with Robbie in sixth. M Racer in seventh with Sav in eighth. Levi in ninth, and Rusty in a very, very downhearted 10th place. It'll be him, and NRX will have some lessons to learn off of the back of that one. Towards the back, McCabe Sam in 11th with FRA Arch in 12th, Baki in 13th, Simba in 14th, Gilly in 15th with JHO 6 in 16th, Ayres and Rowan rounding out Shizou's poor performance in 17th and 18th, and WOR absolutely atrocious end to this race. 2 laps down for Schumacher in 19th with well over 30 seconds worth of penalties in the end on that one. And then Dan Spreen, of course, DNFing on lap 1. What a race it has been, as a British Grand Prix usually is. I'm certainly looking forward to seeing what we've got coming up next week, in what is going to be a fantastic performance, I'm sure, for, I hope, some of the drivers, as of course Shizou and WOR will be looking to bounce back after a poor performance at the British Grand Prix, when they return, of course, in 1 week's time at the Azerbaijani Grand Prix, for what is going to be a very, very slick street race. Thank you very much for watching. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye for now.